So what's going on guys, Kids here, and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best class and weapon tier list in Throne and Liberty. In general, this game has a lot of unique classes and weapons to play and choose from, but the big question is, what is the best and highest damage combo? So we will take a look at all the new weapons to see which one will suit your playstyle and dominate the current meta. And then at the end of the video, we will summarize on how to find the best weapon combos, depending on where they're ranked and much more. If this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then for the first S tier weapon we have the longbow. This weapon type specializes in long range sniping, binding enemies from behind and dealing maximum damage. It can also be used to accelerate stealth recovery of party members, making it a huge asset to your allies. Right now this is considered as one of the best weapons in the game because of its high damage output, optimized offhand usage, amazing skills, and exceptional range. Combining this with a dagger or a staff can result in the highest possible DPS in the game. In addition, you can use the longbow in PvP battles by equipping a wand as an offhand weapon. This setup can provide crowd control and healing abilities, making it an amazing combo. So the pros are that we get great damage for both PvE and PvP. We have great range, so we can play at distance and still do crazy damage. Then the longbow is very easy to play because it will resemble any other archer type of class. And finally we get self-healing, so not only we can do damage, but you can even heal yourself and others. But then for cons, we only have one, which is that we don't get great offhand choices. The only downside to the longbow is that it doesn't synergize very well with other offhands. So overall the longbow is the most effective primary weapon currently in the game. Then for the next one we have the crossbow, which I will place in the A tier. This is a weapon that allows you to fight in style, with fast movement and unrelenting attack speed. You can leave marks and unleash merciless barrage on the weak enemies, taking them down in a second. The crossbow is known for its high single target damage and debuff potential, making it a popular choice among players who prefer a class with a more precise and tactical approach. This weapon is very useful when fighting bosses or other high value targets that require focused single target DPS. While the crossbow lacks AoE, it more than makes up for it with its versatility and DPS numbers. So for pros we have that we get great single target DPS, as this is the second best damage weapon in the game. Then second of all, we get range, so we can play at long ranges to avoid taking any damage whatsoever. And lastly, we are very versatile, so this is the most versatile weapon that synergizes with every single offhand in the game. But then for cons, we have that we are only focused on single target damage, so most players prefer the longbow for similar range but more versatile gameplay. And second of all, you are kind of jack of all trades. So this weapon is the master of none, but great all-around choice, as he is usually the second choice behind the bow. So then for the third weapon we have the wand and tome, which deserves to be right in the A tier. This weapon supports friendly players with healing, magic and buffing skills. You also get a powerful curse skill that not only helps your party to survive, but also weakens the enemies, which in return will maximize your friendly players' damage. The wand and a tome is especially effective in boss raids or group fights. Overall this is considered to be the best choice for solo players or healer classes, because of its skills to provide both healing and crowd control. It's the primary weapon for support roles in groups, but even PvPers and solo players can use it as an offhand weapon to increase their survivability. So for pros we have that we are the best support that can buff, heal and support allies in combat. Then second of all, we have crowd control, so the wand excels at stunning enemies, which is great for both PvE and PvP. And lastly, as I mentioned, we are strong in solo play, as every solo player will need healing, thus making this pretty much a must-have. However, for cons we have that this weapon focuses on too much support and lacks any kind of damage, which is his primary drawback. So if you go solo, you will need to combine this with something like the daggers, longbow or the crossbow, and that's about it. And then for the last and final A tier weapon we have the greatsword. This is a well-balanced weapon that combines devastating combo attacks with high stealth. With his earth-shattering AoE attacks, It instantly penetrates the enemy defenses and dominates the battlefield. This is widely considered to be the most powerful melee weapon. It is especially useful for tank players who seek to maximize their damage output and is also a great choice for PvP combat. The pros are that we get amazing AoE damage, which will become even more powerful in the endgame. Then as well we get crowd control, so you can stun enemies reliably, which is especially amazing for PvP. And lastly, most players like to use this weapon with a sword and shield, which would give us high survivability, but very high AoE damage as well. And then for cons, we have that we have no range, so you're entirely dependent on melee damage. Then second of all, we are very offhand dependent, so if you pick the wrong offhand, then you will lose out on damage. And lastly, we have to gap close, so we will lose out on damage by spending time to get closer to our enemies. But overall, if you prefer playing characters whose skills resemble a melee bruiser, then the greatsword is the perfect choice for you. Then next up we have the daggers, that will be placed right in the B tier. This weapon specializes in wounding enemies using poisonous CC attacks and stealth. The dagger in Throne to Liberty is a melee weapon that provides skills with high burst damage, making it perfect choice for players looking to create an assassin type of character. Dagger playstyle is centered around increasing critical chance, positioning the weapon to the side or rear of the target for extra damage, and delivering multiple hits in a rapid succession. One of the dagger's key advantages is its speed and agility. It is a lightweight weapon that allows for quick movement, making it easier to dodge attacks and close in on enemies. Our weapon's pros are that we get high crits, so you can quickly burst down enemies from 100 to 0 HP. Then second of all, we get great mobility, so by using various dagger skills, we can move insanely quickly. And finally, we have amazing burst, so the dagger playstyle is built around mainly short-lasting fights. And then for cons, we have that we have to position our character very carefully. So for us to maximize damage, we will need to constantly focus on positioning. Then second of all, daggers are very PvP focused. This weapon type isn't built for group PvE, but mainly solo and PvP. And finally, we don't have great offhand choices. So because of our fast and high damage, our offhand choices and stat optimization are quite limited. So then for the next class we have the staff, which I will place in the C tier. This weapon type allows you to freely control various magic elements. You can deal devastating damage with explosive magic attacks, and lead the battlefield in your favor with AoE magic. The staff is a weapon that excels at clearing out weaker enemies, and is especially useful for power leveling. This is a versatile weapon that can be used in different ways, depending on the situation. However, it will fall short in a single target damage. So then our pros are that we have AoE damage. This is your weapon if you like massive elemental damage and AoE destruction. Then we are also great for power leveling, so nothing can beat clearing waves of enemies while leveling with a staff. And lastly, we get very long range, so we can do damage from insanely far away. But then for cons, we have that you get long cooldowns, so we will have to use our spells very carefully. Then second of all, we have weak survivability, so we will have to kite enemies and not let them approach us in a melee range. And finally, we have lower damage than the longbow or the crossbow. So overall, what I'm trying to say is that the staff is more effective as a supporting weapon to complement any other primary weapon. And then for the last and final C tier weapon, we have the sword and shield. This weapon is your typical tank player that maintains very high defenses and provides survivability. You can protect your allies by using the weapon as a crowd controller, which will allow you to lead fights from the front of the battlefield. You can also aggro hard-hitting mobs, taking the pressure off your damage dealers. The sword and shield weapon is a great choice for players who prioritize survivability above all else. While you might not deal as much damage, you have the best survivability in both PvE and PvP. Every group wants to bring a tank, but often no one wants to play it because of its weak overall damage. This class pros are that you get high survivability because you can reflect damage and make enemies pay for attacking you. Then you get taunt, that grabs the attention of the enemies with the taunt and aggro, which is very important in the PvE endgame. And lastly, you have amazing damage reduction because we can reduce the damage for ourselves and the group. And then for cons, we have that we get low damage, so your damage output will be dreadful, unless you have an excellent offhand combined. Then second of all, we have weak mobility, so we are forced to play a melee only playstyle without range. And finally, we are support only character, so if you want to do solo content or power level, then you will need to use a different weapon. So overall, if you're a tank player, then this is the class for you. And then finally, if you were wondering what are the best combos and how two weapons rank together, then now you can pause the video and see the chart. The way it will work that, for example, I wanna know where staff with a wand will rank. So first of all, we take a look at the left side, then now the top part, and finally we find where they meet. And it's right here. And that's about it. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or suggestions, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and not miss any more amazing content. With that said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in the next one. So take it easy, peace.